So the How to ADHD channel recently posted a video about the ADHD tax, which is not a real tax. It's a tax that basically ADHD people experience because essentially they suck at life and everything ends up costing more because of a lack of life skills. And I thought this was a really interesting video. I'm not really into reaction videos, but I thought it would be fun to look through this and kind of add my comments onto it. So yeah, let's just go through that and we'll do that together.
This episode is sponsored by Wondrium. Stick around till the end of the video to learn more about it. Hello, Greens. How much money have you wasted in the last month because you accidentally missed a payment or went into overdraft or didn't end up cooking those vegetables after all and now they're really gross and you still haven't thrown them away, so now you're voiding your fridge entirely and ordering takeout?
Yeah, I've done all of those things. Much less so lately, but yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah, that's the ADHD tax. Many of us spend an embarrassing amount on things like parking tickets and late fees, even when we had the money to pay our bills on time. As Andrew Avery put it beautifully in this lovely article, the ADHD tax is the price you pay for costly mistakes due to symptoms of ADHD. But because you're not supposed to plagiarize other people's work just because it was better than what you could come up with.
Oh, this is awkward. This is kind of how I feel about reaction videos, but yeah, let's keep going.
I'll get a bit more specific with it. According to the How to ADHD Dictionary, the ADHD tax, noun, is the extra cost those with diagnosable inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity, and/or executive function challenges incur as a result of being inattentive, hyperactive, impulsive, and/or struggling with executive function.
So for me, hyperactive, less so, but inattentive, definitely. Like, I forget to pay things, even if I have the money. When I have money, I forget to pay them. I can be impulsive. I like to buy things on Amazon. That's definitely a problem. The way they've streamlined the way you can purchase things now has only caused a bigger problem for me in that area. And then struggling with executive function. I mean, I have a lot of videos on this channel where I'm just trying to spend my time organizing a to-do list. So that's a real thing.
It's typically used to refer to financial costs, late fees, higher interest rates, missed flights, lost checks, stuff we didn't return on time, expensive courses we never finished, money we're apparently donating to services we don't even use.
Okay, so late fees, yes. Or bank fees, right? Higher interest rates, definitely, because my credit score sucks. Missed flights, I can't say I've ever missed a flight, but that's because I freak out so much about that stuff that, you know, I'm almost, I guess because there's that dooming deadline of the plane leaving, I'm just like, I gotta get there. But that's something like, that's a nightmare. Stuff we didn't return on time. Sure, there are tools that I've rented that if you don't return them, you buy them, and I've bought them. Lost checks. Maybe. Services we don't use. Yeah, for sure. There are loads of things that I see them, and you know, now on my to-do list, I write down cancel such and such. And I had a gym membership once that it was at Planet Fitness and it was costing me like $20 a month, which, you know, when $20 comes out of your bank, it's like, whatever, it's not too big of a deal. Multiply that by 12 and you're at $240 plus the yearly membership fee, you're over $300. And of course it would come out of the worst time ever. And I was bad at managing money. So I would end up with a bank fee because my account would be overdrawn because of a $20 gym membership that I wasn't even using. And expensive courses, I don't relate too much to that, but I can see how all of these things would be problems.
A recent study in the US followed a large sample of children with and without ADHD for about 20 years and found that the ADHDers took longer to become financially independent as adults. At age 30, they were worse off financially, and in terms of income, they were estimated to make over $1 million less during their lifetime compared to the neurotypical group. That's a lot of money. But the ADHD tax can apply to other things as well. Time, relationships, our health, everything meaningful I own because I had the brilliant idea to pack up my car with everything I didn't want to forget before a cross-state move and then forgot to lock the car.
I think that is important to note, like with relationships and work and health as well, right? Like sometimes brushing my teeth is a challenge. And instead of the to-do list saying brush your teeth, sometimes I have to say, you know, what's the motivation? Cavities. That's the motivation. But like for friendships, I had a friend that, gosh, he would text me and I wouldn't text back right at that moment. And then the next time I'd think about texting back, I'd be too overwhelmed about texting back and time would go on. And unfortunately, he was one of those friends that would be offended by that and would think that I didn't like him, right? But really, it was just my inability to send a text message. which sounds so stupid. And it kind of is, but, there's that piece of me. I'm lacking a piece that can, get out of that maze that I find myself in. And it's the same with work as well. You can become so disorganized to the point in which you're worried about being found out, right? And you feel very demoralized.
It's one of those we laugh so we don't cry situations. And truthfully, learning to label it for what it is, the ADHD tax, and something everyone with ADHD experiences, can help take away some of the shame. That said, it's still expensive.
Yeah, I think the shame is a big part of everything. And certainly at work, for me, where I felt ashamed in the past, I feel like just being upfront, letting someone know, hey, I really struggle with this area. Feel free to hold me accountable to it. That is helpful. And, definitely in the past year or two, I've made this decision to not feel ashamed about anything and just remember that I'm human. And, if you take a baby and you just rapidly grow them up to be a 25-year-old in, say, a day, they're not going to have any of the life skills they need to be a 25-year-old. And everyone's going to look at them and be like, hey, you're stupid. But they're a baby. And so there are things that I didn't learn for whatever reason that I can learn. But if I feel ashamed, I'll never learn them. And so, yeah, I've got to agree with that. I think it's less about naming it and more about not being so hard on yourself.
Which, when you're on a budget, is a problem. How expensive exactly? My research team tells me it's difficult to collect data on exactly how much more we're spending on vegetables we never cook compared with neurotypical people, so those studies, unfortunately, have not been done. But the ADHD tax is a well-known phenomenon in the ADHD community. All the examples were pulled directly from this community.
I'm sorry. What were some of these comments?
All the examples were pulled directly from the
late fees on library books. I only borrow books now if I want to make a donation to the library service. The penalty for locking my key in my dorm room. My car getting repoed and then having to go through the difficult process of getting it back. That's all stuff that just makes you kick yourself at the end. Like if I had just done this. Oh, federal income taxes. Holy cow.
This community. And studies have been done on some of the average economic costs associated with ADHD. Researchers estimate the annual cost of ADHD in children and adults in the US range between $800 and $20,000 a person due to educational costs, healthcare costs, juvenile justice, and wage loss, absenteeism, disability, work loss.
I think that's really sad, juvenile justice. Because you can get into trouble for just being inattentive, right? Like, being inattentive can turn into neglect. It's really sad that people's whole lives can be ruined by this.
Associated with ADHD. And the societal costs in the US are estimated to range between $143 to $266 billion every year. And it isn't just in the US. A recent study out of Denmark compared adult siblings with ADHD with a similar sibling without ADHD and found the total average extra cost for 1 year was over 20,000 euros. And this is only some of the costs.
I can definitely see that. Like, you have a kid with ADHD and they're struggling at school, for example. There's going to be extra things, that they need.
Involved. Again, this doesn't include rotten vegetables or late fees. The truth is, the ADHD tax is high, and it's much higher than it needs to be. Why? A lot of it's systemic. When systems are built to be more error tolerant, it doesn't cost us as much to be more prone to careless mistakes. My car insurance rate stopped going up as soon as backup cams became a thing. Also, ADHD is highly treatable, and the right supports can help us keep jobs, succeed in school, and remember to pay our bills.
I kind of agree that it's systemic. I think there are things that need to change. Like I say, I think that it's a workplace's job to help keep their people engaged by really working out how to respect their employees. And, definitely better schooling systems and software and stuff like that is good. On the same hand, though, like, I feel like sometimes you can step a little too far into acting like a victim because, yeah, right, it's not okay and you shouldn't feel ashamed. On the other hand, it's on you to speak up for yourself. It's on you to be honest, right? And it's on you to work out how to navigate the world. Just because somebody doesn't have ADHD doesn't mean that they don't also have struggles or wish that things could be different. And sometimes making something so much easier for me can then make it more difficult for somebody else. And so, the systemic thing is like swings and roundabouts. I think that it's really important to kind of own it yourself. And, work on yourself. And I know that people say that, ADHD versus non-ADHD, they're kind of different brains. But part of the whole ADHD thing is skills that weren't learned, right? It's that executive function where you didn't kind of pick it up as a kid. So I think there's a lot that can be solved there that is ultimately beneficial.
In fact, as expensive as treatment can be, researchers have found that only a small percentage of these costs is for ADHD medication and therapy, relative to the higher costs for education, crime, and costs to others. And they conclude that cost-effective treatment of ADHD should prioritize treatment costs, especially psychosocial therapies. In other words, if society took ADHD as seriously as these numbers suggest that they should, and invested in more research, treatments, and supports for those with ADHD, we'd probably all be spending a lot less on ADHD than we are now.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That is fair. You could also argue that if we spent more time educating parents on how to educate their children, that less children would have ADHD. So, having support out there is a good thing. I'll leave it at that.
One of the ADHD taxes I pay is on instruments I buy and then never play. I'm wondering.
I guess this is the sponsor. Now I'm not gonna play the sponsor, but I will say I have many guitars that I've bought that I am not currently playing.
To ADHD, or click on the link it do. It's clearly really important. I've included resources in the description below, including ways we can invest in supports for ourselves.
Anyway, so let me switch the camera over here. Yeah, so excuse my messy room. I think this is a really good video. It does point out that I think if you have ADHD, you're already aware of this stuff. But for people that don't have it, I think sometimes it's really a struggle for them to see the struggles that people are going through. Like, it can be really challenging. And there's nothing worse than thinking you're on top of the world financially. And then, like, one thing, it's like a house of cards. It all just falls down. And the people that are succeeding, they look at you and they're like, all you got to do is this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, I know that that's all I've got to do. But doing that is so much more difficult than it appears. And like we take for granted as we progress, we take for granted things that become very basic to us, right? And sometimes you have to go back to the time when you're a kid, and you have to look at a kid and think, would everything that you're doing be as easy if you didn't know how to speak English? If you didn't know how to communicate? Right? What if you only had 5 words that you could use? And so it's the same with skills. If you don't have all of the skills that you need, or if you sort of have, just constant impending anxiety and you find it really hard to talk to people, there's going to be times when you can't get through stuff. And mental support, if that all comes around and that improves over time, that's great. But I think the biggest challenge is really helping people understand what ADHD is and how prevalent it actually is. Because it's certainly much more prevalent than I had ever imagined. And I can see it in so many people. And it's so sad. It's so sad to see people struggle with it. Like, I've heard people say that they cry multiple times a day. And I'm just like, dang. Well, like, that's how hard life is for you, that you cry multiple times a day. I'm not at that place, but I could see how someone could end up there. Anyway, that's all I got. Feel free to check out the How to ADHD channel. They've definitely got some really good videos. And like and subscribe if you like this video. But I should probably stop procrastinating now and go get some other work done. All right, see you guys.